And like,
Well, nah, they wasn't no hard in juvie because if they was fighting like that and they was in juvie didn't do them no service.
So
Shit,
did you bet on the Charleston White fight? I don't know what the.
No, I did not bet on the Charleston White fight. I actually found out a little late. So by the time I got to it, it was just in the middle of it was like the first round had just started. Yeah. I was just like, hey, this is what we doing now. This is what we doing now. So.
Yes, sir. Hey, well, with that, y'all, we gonna welcome y'all to the Fire This Time podcast, episode 110. This week, we will be focusing on the Zionist war on Iran, a brief history of the Iranian Revolution, and lastly, we'll take up the question, is it our fight, in reference to Black solidarity with global and domestic conflicts? So with that, I welcome you once again. I got to open it up for my homies, Ahki the G, Slank, co-host of the Fire This Time podcast. Say what up, y'all.
Peace.
What's up, y'all?
Yes, sir. So with that, I'm gonna pass it to my boy Ahki. You know what I'm saying? And so we can keep it moving. Let's do it.
Well, as usual, people, welcome back. Thank you for coming with us on this journey that we're taking right now. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you think, and we will definitely get back to you about that. And we always take the feedback we take it into consideration. So please let us know what we got going on. Please let us know what you think. Please let us know what you see, and let us know what ideas you got. I say peace on that. I'm passing it back to Sonny.
So yeah, y'all, for this week's fire, we got an update on last episode. The homie FD, no, I shouldn't say that. FD Signifier, he commented on the video, and y'all can read what he said. Just wanted to be known that I did apologize for this. These are the words of FD Signifier. Hey, just wanted to be known that I did apologize for this. It was irresponsible use of my platform, trying to be more careful going forward. He certainly wasn't careful with his spelling in this reference to an apology. But what y'all think about this, man?
I mean, he acknowledged his mistake, his misreference, his lack of sources, and he acknowledged it and he said he's gonna do better. That's all we can ask for from a content creator. Next time, just stick with the facts and get better sources. That's all.
Yeah, same. I agree. Just a matter of like sharing that and as like a deep analysis on Burkina Faso when it was just, we went over the article. It was all over the place. There was not a deep analysis, nothing. So like, just better sources, that's what I would say going forward. Fact check stuff. Yeah.
For sure. And I mean, I'll say this kind of surprised me because, I mean, we wasn't looking for an apology, really. I mean, for us, it looked like an example of poor politics. You know what I'm saying? Maybe some counterinsurgent efforts going on. I'm not saying him directly, but maybe him being affected by it, unconsciously, ignorantly, you know what I'm saying? But I think kind of what you were referencing, Slank, I think, him posting that with the words that he did was indicative of a type of Black liberal, Black progressive politics, not Black radical, not, Black nationalist, you know what I'm saying? Not Pan-African in any type of revolutionary way, you know what I'm saying? And you can't apologize for that difference in politics. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not an apology to be had. You don't have to apologize for, being put, having a different political stance or ideology or worldview than us on this podcast. And I think that's really what's at issue here. But FD Signifier, he's not the type to really enjoy those differences being made very visible. You know what I'm saying? It's the fact, him being able to maneuver with blurred borders between these ideological differences lets him be able to masquerade as a radical, you know what I'm saying? And when it benefits him. And of course, his real politics peak out when they do. What y'all think about that? You muted, Ahki.
we done dealt with issues with him before in the past on certain things he said, so it's sort of not something uncommon that he does. I agree with everything you said. I mean, I think you delved into it a little bit better and explained it a little bit better. We'll see all of this again from him. He got a habit of doing this a lot.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, yeah, with that being said, let's take it back here, you know what I'm saying, kind of reintroduce the main topic, you know what I'm saying. We're going to, keep it moving past that. But also thank you for all the support from y'all on episode 109. Definitely love to see that. But, keep it moving. We want to talk about the Zionist war, Israel or isn't real's war on the Palestinian people, on Iran, and the region in general, you know what I'm saying? Not to even mention what they did to Syria, you know what I'm saying, with the U.S.'s help. So I'm going to pass it to you, Slank, you know what I'm saying? Because I think the best way to attack this maybe for our audience would be, to supply that historical type of analysis up front, you know what I'm saying? Just so we can, kind of anchor some of these issues that we're seeing, some of these events that we're seeing in a way that's helpful for us to really think about it. So, yeah, Slank, where do you want to start with the historical, look at Iran's revolution?
Yeah, as far as I'll just start with the kind of a brief history of like what happened a little bit right before the revolution. You know what I'm saying? What the situation was, because that's always important. Knowing what people was rebelling against. You know what I mean? So yeah, like Iran before the revolution in the late 70s was ruled by a Shah, which is like a monarch king, what have you, and basically he was entirely Western backed, the U.S., Britain. He was they wanted the oil, so he was sell out to the Britain and the United States for oil. They had put him in power, kept him in power. In 1953, the Iranians had a prime minister named Mossadegh who was overthrown by the CIA because he wanted to nationalize oil and things like that. And then the U.S. helped put the Shah back in power. So he was corrupt. The people, students were heavily involved. All different groups of Iranian society kind of came together under this anti-imperialist message, led kind of mostly by the Khomeini, you know what I mean, the Ayatollah. And this guy on the screen right there is Ali Shariati. He was also very influential. He was a sociologist, philosopher. He had studied in France and studied a lot of Fanon. And so he kind of fused the ideas of Fanon with Shia Islam, you know what I'm saying? And came up with like a kind of a new ideology that, united some of the Iranians, like their cultures, religions that were part of their culture with, this anti-imperialism and revolution. And the revolution was successful in 79. Toward the end of it, there was a American embassy. They took hostages, revolutionaries in Iran, militants who were part of this uprising in 79. And one of the things that happened was they let the women and the black hostages who are Americans in this embassy free. They saw the embassy as kind of like a spy network. You know what I mean? It was the headquarters of all the spying for the Shah, all that kind of stuff. The Shah even had his own secret police too, called the Savak, that was very brutal. But yeah, so basically the black hostages were let go by the Iranians because the Palestinian Liberation Organization intervened and on the Black Americans' behalf and kind of suggested that, yeah, that article's paywall. But yeah, so that's just like a brief history of kind of the revolution, what they were rebelling against, the brutal rulership of the Shah, his being a lackey to American interests, and yeah, kind of how that they use like a revolutionary Islam to as a vehicle to like unite the people and everything.
For sure. So I mean, let me throw it back to you real quick, Slank. I mean, So in terms of the Iranian Revolution, like how much of today's government, in the country, do you think is reflective of that Fanonian influence that came previously?
I think Lenin would probably characterize the revolution, where the revolution went after it was successful, as kind of like a bourgeois nationalist revolution. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if they're still like everyday practicing that Fanon, spirit, but I will say that they stayed anti-imperialist. Even the bourgeois, petty bourgeois elements that run the country have stayed anti-Zionist, anti-imperialist, even if they didn't want, even if they cracked down on communists after the revolution and things like that, is what I would say.
So, real quick, like, over the decades, we've seen a lot of accusations that Iran, given this anti-imperialist, stance that they were constant funders, supporters of, groups in the region that, whose aims and objectives ran counter to those of Israel's, you know what I'm saying? And, this is part of the narrative, you know what I'm saying? Some of it, of course, propagandized and made up by isn't real, but also a lot of it, you know what I'm saying, being true, because Iran does have that stance. How do you kind of see, that at play? That
as far as like a motive for Israel attacking?
Yeah, like I guess how much of that is real, you know what I'm saying, in terms of Iran's support for those groups? Can you kind of maybe detail for the audience, you know what I'm saying, what types of groups are they supporting? Maybe some that we've heard about, you know what I'm saying, recently in this regional conflict, you know what I'm saying, just so we can get, you know what I'm saying, one step closer to the war as it stands now, how we got here.
Yeah, no, so Iran, they send a lot of material support to other revolutionary Islamic movements in the region that are anti-Zionist, anti-imperialist, like the Houthis in Yemen, like the Hamas in Gaza, like Hezbollah in Lebanon. So those are some of the main groups, you know what I'm saying? And there's also probably many other groups that they're linked up with and things like that. But those are the ones that Israel focuses on as being a threat to their security, I would say, mainly, especially Hamas and Hezbollah,
And Iran seems to have no equal as far as nations in that region, you know what I'm saying, in their support for, anti-imperialism, you know what I'm saying? So
because they got they're not like a superpower, but it is they got a pretty modern industrialized country, you know what I'm saying, as far as those standards go or whatever. And part of that is a reflection of where they were before that with the Shah. He wasn't letting them industrialize to that level. He wanted to keep them, in a state of dependence, whereas now they're able to build up things like they're building toward uranium enrichment and stuff like that, both for domestic use, and if they wanted to, they have every right to do it for weapons as well. So that's just a threat to, white Western imperialism, especially Israel. They want to be the only people with nukes or any kind of power in that region, and just anybody else doing is a threat to their supremacy type shit.
Yeah. And it's remarkable how they've gotten Christians in this country on board with that Zionist mission. I think about somebody like Ted Cruz. I'm not sure if he's Jewish or not, but I mean, I just know he's very pro-Zionist.
He's Cuban. He's a Quisano.
Mm-hmm.
So he's probably Catholic. And he one of the big contradictions in that interview, they referenced him with Tucker Carlson, where he said like the Bible is his foundation for supporting Israel because God commanded that they support the current government of Netanyahu, which is crazy. He mentions that he hates communism because he's from Cuba, and then he goes, but my dad was tortured by Batista. So like, you know what I'm saying? Batista was the American puppet before communism even, took over in Cuba. So his dad wasn't even, his story, like he's not the typical Guisano who can argue like, oh, my plantation was taken. Nah, bro, he's just.
That really is such a striking clip, you know what I'm saying? I mean, so much so that I think it's worthwhile we just play that real quick. I got to pull it up. This shit was kind of bizarre, seeing just how the Zionist, capitalist, imperialist mind works. Let's check it out.
Look, my father was imprisoned and tortured in Cuba. I hate communists. It was actually Batista that tortured my dad.
That's like Kanye level comedic timing, but he didn't mean it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah, crazy. Let's pass it to you, Ahki, before we move into, maybe a closer discussion of the war that's ongoing right now. Do you got anything you want to add to, what Slank had to say about the history?
I mean, Iran has always been resistant. I mean, Iranians are not considered to be Arabs. They don't consider themselves to be Arabs. They consider themselves to be Persians. And, there's a lot of history that, Slank went through that, and some history even before that. I think the history that he spoke on specifically with the Shah and the overturn of the Shah, that's probably the most relevant history to what's going on today. Far as their continuous fight and pushback towards invaders, colonialists, imperialists, has always been constant. It always been, a part of them. I know I just seen some recently with them, just based on how their geography is in Iran. It's a very hard place for anybody to try to invade unless you're going to be trying to drop a bomb on them. You couldn't do it by land like that. It's a lot of desert, a lot of hills, a lot of mountains. They're protected by natural surroundings. And those are ancient type of, ancient and natural fortifications that they've used for years. So I would say that the history stands at what it is. Since we've all been born and living on this planet, Iran has always resisted the United States.
Yeah, I've seen some military commentators say that, nothing short of a nuclear bomb or several of them, would end Iran, or cause, any type of serious disruption that, would, see a regime change or the country change hands or be, balkanized or something like that. So definitely, I'm hearing a lot of what you're saying, my own research or, what I'm saying. So, yeah, that definitely brings us, to the current day, the present day. And I want to come back around to Iran's like natural fortifications. That's actually, played a big importance in, some of the recent strikes that the U.S. did on Iran, what I'm saying, and their nuclear sites. But before we get there, I do want to touch on briefly just, what is causing this. I mean, there's certain technological advances in military, hardware technology, whatever, particularly in terms of hypersonic missiles that is definitely changing, the battlefield. In Ukraine and Russia, we see the effect of like drone war, drones, that's, a big element changing the game. And of course, even in, Iran's conflict, or the Zionist, war on Iran, we see drones play a major part. Iran will send over dozens, hundreds of drones to fuck up the, missile defense systems. Anyways, I just want to say that, Iran and their hypersonic missile technology, is changing the game. I mean, it's something to think about. Why doesn't the U.S. have as much capability in terms of hypersonic missiles? Why is the U.S. lagging behind, countries like the U.S.? Not saying, I'm, trying to influence or inspire them to work harder, at the U.S. developing technology. But I'll just put this out there. We don't have to focus on it, but just how privatized the weapons industry is, When we look at China or Russia, who are outpacing the U.S. in terms of hypersonic capabilities, those are state-centered economies. So not even getting into the weeds of it, we can at least say those are state-centered economies where they're not letting, capitalist arms industry companies, dominate and have a profit motive when it comes to, the defense of the country. Like they do a lot of control on things like that. I think that also, lends itself to, development. I think I guess, sorry if I'm all over the place, but I'll end on this note. It makes us question the, is the innovation that's attached to capitalism, Western capital, free markets, are they truly the innovators they claim to be? You know what I'm saying? When here's yet another field, or, sphere of society where the innovation elsewhere in the world, away from the West, is outpacing and really, bringing about great changes. You know what I'm saying? The fact that Iran is able to stage a defense, is able to retaliate and land blows on Israel is because of, in large part because of, their engineering. You know what I'm saying? A lot of their hard sciences. Slank, you got anything?
No, I would say that, it definitely shows that they have some advanced capabilities. They were able to get through the Iron Dome defense system that America tax money, funds with billions every year. The most sophisticated missile defense system in the world, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, and one of the strikes that I want to note that they got in was on the diamond exchange in Tel Aviv. Yeah. Tel Aviv's got the world's largest diamond exchange, but they ain't got no diamonds over there. They get all them diamonds from South Africa, from Zambia, you know what I'm saying, from all these Southern African countries and West African countries. And it's been like that since they've been extracting diamonds with Cecil Rhodes and Oppenheimer, who has his own museum in Israel. There's an Oppenheimer museum. One of the richest men in South Africa right now is a white man named Oppenheimer, Nicky Oppenheimer, worth $10 billion. His great-great-grandfather, whatever, teamed up with Cecil Rhodes to found the Anglo-American company and De Beers and all that diamond shit. Wow. He's a legend in South Africa. I mean, in Israel, because Oppenheimer is a British Jewish man, or it might have been German. I don't remember which one, but he's a Jewish man that moved to South Africa, teamed up with Rhodes to do all this shit. And like Khalid Muhammad used to say, a lot of the jewelers and things like that, named Goldstein, Silverstein, Rubenstein, is because they be stealing all the rubies and the diamonds, taking them back to Israel. That's proof right there. So, yeah, it was a good strike on the diamond exchange. I support that shit 100%. That's all I got to say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, I mean, when we think about the defense against these hypersonic missiles, these advanced missile systems, I mean, Slank, you mentioned something that all that is, funded by U.S. taxpayers. And also, I'll offer this to the audience too. The Iron Dome, just as far as technically speaking, is the layer of protection that protects them from the smaller rockets that Hamas historically has fired at them. They more advanced systems. They call them. They're actually called David Sling, is the name of the missile defense system for cruise missiles and hypersonic missiles that Israel employs. It's called David Sling. And that often uses arrow missiles. They call arrow missiles, which cost millions upon millions. You know what I'm saying? Per. You know what I'm saying? So 1 month. You know what I'm saying? The strikes that I think Iran sent over, I think last year, I think the article I was reading said that it cost them over $1 billion. And the strikes only last a day or two. You know what I'm saying? The previous time. You know what I'm saying? But that cost Israel over $1 billion to defend itself. And this time, I mean, we know Iran's, retaliation strikes have been much more intense, the past month. You know what I'm saying? So we're talking about billions upon billions upon billions, being spent by Israel and thus the West to defend itself against, Iran's, technologically advanced missile systems.
I mean, I know that's one of the big fears over there is that they trade those rocket systems and those missile systems with others around the region, which we have sort of already seen that pop up, So they're not only are they advancing themselves in technology, but they're also afraid, or their enemies are afraid that they will possibly share that technology with other people who don't like them either. So it's just it's the typical tactics that a colonial power does to try to keep you down. As far as with those that iron wall, that iron dome, And also how they attack Iran, So, I mean, it's a heavy situation, for sure. For sure.
We lost Slank. Hopefully he comes back. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure he's just having a few technical difficulties. But, just to keep things rolling, there has been a ceasefire that was just announced today. So there's no evidence that this is something that's going to hold, but it is a significant development that Reuters is now reporting, citing a senior Iranian official, that Tehran agrees to a ceasefire with Israel, but brokered by Qatar and proposed by the United States.
I mean, shoot. That's something right there. Qatar.
So that Qatar is where some of the U.S. bases that Iran tried to strike in response were located, but I believe that that wasn't a successful strike.
No, so, apparently some of the biggest ones, like one of the U.S. commands is there. And in the Reuters article, it said that Trump waved off those attacks, saying that Iran warned him ahead of time, so it was all good or something. Yeah, there it is. Earlier on Monday, okay. Earlier on Monday, Trump said he would encourage Israel to proceed towards peace after dismissing Iran's attack on an American airbase that caused no injuries and thanking Tehran for the early notice on the strikes. So Trump's thanking Iran for giving him early notice, and he's dismissing or waving off mention of them trying to attack American bases, which is strange. You know what I mean? Usually they would use that as like fuel to attack further, but I don't know what's going on. So he's calling it the 12-day war, though. Trump named the war in the same article. Yeah, so ridiculous. I
don't know why. It seemed like he's just trying to do this to put a mark on his on his record. It don't seem like he's serious, but he's not that serious.
Yeah. He's gonna say he ended the war like as one of his accomplishments and shit.
So Slank, you got a tweet here responding to some BS that I know everybody watching this episode maybe has heard at least once in the past however many months. This idea that Kamala would do better. Somebody here said, Juicy J. Jordan said, I know y'all are going to be mad, but I'll say it again, that mixed lady who liked to giggle wouldn't have done this. So Slank, I'll let you give your response to it.
Yeah, no, I was just pointing out that Kamala Harris absolutely would have done that. I'm pretty sure during her campaign, she campaigned on saying that while Biden had restricted the 2,000-pound bombs or whatever to Israel, she would not do that. And she, as vice president, she oversaw a genocide of the Palestinian people committed by Israel with full American support. Her husband, Doug Emhoff or whatever, when he goes to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, in Israel, which, for those who don't know, the Wailing Wall, I'm pretty sure it's like an old Roman fort. I don't even think it has nothing to do with Jewish history. But when they built the plaza in front of that where all the Zionists go and pray and everything, and all the world leaders pay homage and stuff like that, they had to bulldoze 100 Arab homes in the, I think it was called like the Moroccan Quarter or something like that.
Yeah.
And some people died in the rubble, in the bulldoze. This was 1967. The mayor of Jerusalem was Teddy Kolik at the time, who ordered all this. But so they're at the site, the grave site of a Palestinian village right here. She's adjusting her husband's little hat while he goes and puts messages in the old wall that the Romans built. I don't know. And then, she goes to AIPAC meetings. She goes to Israel and inspects the Iron Dome defense system with the IDF, shoulder to shoulder. Like she's not an enemy of Netanyahu. Like, he's cool with Democrats, Republicans, anybody that's giving him tax money is a friend of Netanyahu. So she's cool with Netanyahu. She would have absolutely, the timing might have been different, but if Israel had struck Iran the same way, she would have been right there with them the same way. And then she would have went over and adjusted, Doug's kippah at the Western Wall afterwards.
I wonder why she ain't take his last name. Inhofe. Imhoff.
Good question. Good question. Man, nah, shit crazy. Shit really crazy. Nah, I'm happy we get a chance to call this shit out, though. As we keep it, go ahead.
I was like, she supposed to be fixing a kufi on her brother's head. Let me shut up.
That's what she was. She did it at Howard for like a year or two, probably.
Yeah,
Then
with
somebody broke her
Montel.
heart.
She was with Montel for a little bit.
Yeah, we know what he is. Yeah, that's wild right there.
So as we keep it moving, I do want to go ahead and pass it to Ahki. As I mentioned before, I think everybody's heard some version of the question, is it our fight? In reference to some either domestic or global conflict. Whether it be the ICE rage and anti-immigration fervor that has taken over large swaths of the country, or it be global conflicts like one could say, I mean, we felt pressure even when Ukraine was invaded by Russia. You know what I'm saying? Like, people saying like, we were there for you, where are you at for us? You know what I'm saying? But of course, in the Palestinian and conflict, there's been a lot of Black support historically and currently, as there should be for that. But also, this question of should there be support for Iran? I'm not seeing that conversation as much. But with that being said, Ahki, how have you seen that question come across? You know what I'm saying? Your purview. And what do you think about an answer to that?
I mean, we saw it in a time and era where that question is being answered. After we came out of this last situation with the last election, the way Black people felt like they were the only ones who stood on business. We're sort of basing our solidarity with people, I think, now on a situational basis. We questioning everything. Black folks gonna say, I ain't never met an Iranian. I deal with the stuff that's closest to me. But I think it's gonna be situational, and it's all gonna be based on values. Do you have a value system that honors people's freedom and people's liberation? Do you have the values that lays out proper, parameters for that relationship, for that solidarity? I don't think we've given up on solidarity, but I think we are questioning and learning how to lay down certain guidelines and how we deal with other people. On a value level, we should be supporting, Iran just like Palestine. Iran has shown a constant and consistent pushback towards imperialism and colonialism, just as the Palestinians. I think that it's framed to Black Americans in a different manner, and because we don't encounter many Iranians on a daily basis, we encounter more Palestinians than we encounter Iranians. So, it's going to be situational. Like the situation, say for instance, with the domestically with the ICE raids and the Hispanic community. There's been a lot of pushback, a lot of calling out far as from the Hispanic community asking where Black people at, why y'all ain't out, It's even been some that's went to the extreme and said, well, I know some of my people voted in certain ways, but that's not all of us. Makes me think about an old John Henry Clark quote when he says, Black folks, you got no friends. If you want friends, look in the mirror. And I don't think that means that we don't join a solidarity with other peoples, but what it means is that you can't expect nobody to look out for your best interest better than you. And so having that in mind, I think Black people are just taking it, like I said, situational and value based. We have some people that's in our community that's very, very hard line on minding their own business right now. But we have always had a large segment of our community that's also called out and stood with people in solidarity against imperialism and things of that such nature. So I think it for us, especially people like ourselves, red, black, and greeners, it's definitely a value-based dealing on solidarity. Do they align up with the same values that we do? Or at least it's a good bit of their values aligned up with ours. You know, it's all situational and it's all value-based. And it's ironic because, you know, even when you think about the ICE raids, most of the folks that's doing the ICE raids is Hispanic. It's Hispanic folks mostly doing those ICE raids because those are the ones that they're gonna, not necessarily Hispanics, but if you go to the West Coast, that's Mexico. And when you get over there, you're gonna see a continuous, numerous amount of Mexicans going in there and snatching up other Mexicans and bringing them out. So, it's just one of those things where we, you know, America's mixed up like that.
It is a very convoluted issue, you know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, of course, on one hand, I want to see our people more politically involved, you know what I'm saying? But on the other hand, I understand that we don't have a lot of capability, you know what I'm saying? Maybe, you know, some of us in the individual sense have a lot to contribute, no doubt. But in the collective sense, you know what I'm saying, we lack the unity, I think, to make decisive decisions or to give decisive support. You know what I'm saying? I got to just throw that in there because I think, you know, we need a lot more national unity. You know, that's what drives my Black nationalism in a lot of ways, right? As an active worldview, as an active ideology that, you know, has purpose right now, Black nationalism does, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, maybe it's not just a value difference that's kind of causing some division. Maybe it's just some division on tactics. You know what I'm saying? I guess I offer that up. Maybe sometimes we don't need to take our divisions all the way to the ideological worldview point, because that might mean that there's no middle ground to be had. You know what I'm saying? We just ops forever. You know what I'm saying? But especially in terms of our people within our community, you know what I'm saying? Some of the differences might just be, you know, what we feel sequentially should happen. You know what I'm saying? Some Black people, they might want separation, but they see it coming through successful Black businesses. You know what I'm saying? Does that mean that they're capitalists and not worthy of working with them because we're radical? Or is there some middle ground that, you know, can change that position while, you know, working towards the common goal? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, just offering that up. Let me turn back right here real quick. But yeah, I do want to agree with the point real quick that we should support Iran like we support Palestine, just in Black America. We should support more both. We should support both more, you know what I'm saying, as a collective. You know what I'm saying? But that's where the national unity comes in. If we're not united, you know what I'm saying, in a very serious way as a national people, as a national body, we can't make no national moves, you know what I'm saying, of support, you know what I'm saying, that brings together our industries across the nation for, you know, common goals. That's what we're trying to create as nationalists, you know what I'm saying? En route to the separate land state, or the separate piece of land, you know what I'm saying? If that's what we still want. We want the Black Belt, let's work towards that. But there's a lot institutionally we could be doing now that might put us in a position to help those, you know, Latino people targeted by ICE, which is fascism, you know what I'm saying? Or to help Burkina Faso citizens, you know what I'm saying, with their revolution, help Mali and, you know what I'm saying, Niger, you know what I'm saying, South Africa, you know what I'm saying. We're in a better position to do that if we're united nationally. And luckily, as a people, we still have a national culture to leverage to bring us together. You know what I'm saying? But that's what so many groups that's not the purpose of this episode, but we know so many groups are targeting, especially in a counterinsurgent effort to dwindle away, to wither away our national culture. So Black people have nothing left to unite with. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they're trying to put it up. They're trying to base it all on ideology. And that's the thing too. You got different ideologies in the community. You got some brothers and sisters in the community. They believe in total solidarity with all Black people. And they like fuck everything else. Then you got the ones who ain't like that. They believe in solidarity with all people that's getting oppressed. Then you have the ones, like I said, it's situational. You know, I've been raised up with Mexicans next door to me my whole life. So, you know, it's one of those type things, you know. But it's like you said, if there's no national unity, you really can't put too much help to anybody, really, you know. I've always felt that way with Pan-Africanism. We should have the institutions for them to come over to and get involved in. They shouldn't have to come over and, you know, really have to look for them. You should already be there.
For sure. And my argument on the national front is, you know, our enemy, our ops are organized on a national global basis. So we can't just rely on our resistance efforts to be individual and local level.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? We have to organize on a greater level if we want to compete with people that are organized bottom to top to bottom. You know what I'm saying? These motherfuckers, our ops is in fucking 4D, 5D dimensional space. You know what I'm saying? With the drugs they taking, with the type of rituals they doing, you know what I'm saying? Fucking up the world, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. I mean, Slank, I'm gonna turn it to you, you know what I'm saying? Anything you want to give to help tie up this episode or this conversation on, you know, national unity as an important piece to our ability to support others?
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the things, like Elijah Muhammad used to make that point back in the 50s and 60s, is that, you know, unity is stronger than what did he say? Unity is stronger than the atom bomb or atomic bomb. And that before we can really go over and, you know, give aid to South Africa or something like that at that time, we have to get ourselves together. And it wasn't him shunning doing things in Africa, because he did a lot of work in Africa, and a lot of Pan-African movements came over and parlayed with the nation and stuff like that. But it was more of we got to fix and get together what we're doing before we can really efficiently and successfully give like material aid, give like the kind of aid that's needed for a lot of the movements overseas and stuff like that.
Yeah. Shout out to the nation. They was growing beans and making bean pies, top to bottom. You know what I'm saying? Don't it might sound funny what I'm saying, but it's serious at the same time. I mean, we see African nations engaging in the same struggle right now. My bad, I still got Slank on there. We got African nations engaging in the same struggle right now to you know, be able to grow their cocoa and manufacture from it, to be able to mine their gold and manufacture from it. You know what I'm saying? These are, you know, the linchpins, the center points, you know what I'm saying, of a nation. You know what I'm saying? Of nationalism. You know what I'm saying? Like some people, like we talk about Black nationalism, they might get hung up on this idea of Black people will never have their own nation. Well, yeah, our generation and the generation after us probably might not have no tangible type of reference point to really picture that in their lifetimes. You know what I'm saying? But that's why Black nationalism is about, you know, not just the journey towards that, but, you know, it's the leveraging of our national culture to carry out national objectives, you know what I'm saying, that we share across the board, you know, owed to our history and our legacy as a people, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, we don't have nothing else, you know what I'm saying, on the docket for today. So any last words, Ahki, Slank, before we get up out of here?
I'll say this. Nationalism, as you said, Sonny, is more than just, you know, a nation state. That may be the highest level and the highest pinnacle, But that is not just it. It's about having national institutions, national products, national political movements or organizations. That's what it's about. I think what's going on now is that the nation state talk has went down. We started off with a very high concept of nationalism, and we took it to nation state and land and things like that. That's a very high level of nationalism. I think now they're thinking more practical. Can you control your block? Can you control the businesses in your community? Can you build your own schools? And I think as we take those steps to get towards that, I think we'll see nationalism come through more and more in a better way. And then that way we can show up for those people who are true allies in value, principle. Because honestly, the values ain't got to be much. The values is sort of simple. Are you anti-imperialist? Are you anti-capitalist? Or not even, so I just say anti-imperialist, anti-colonizer. And do you fuck with us? I think Black folks are simple enough. We'll give you some type of solidarity on that. And don't turn your back on us when the shit get thick. This is basic stuff that we learn every day in the hood. This nationalism ain't got to be super extreme. It can be very basic and very simple. Know who to ally with, Black people. Know who to have solidarity with. And when you find those people, be true to the solidarity. That's what I say.
Slank, you got anything?
Nah, I agree with all that. I'll say guiding principle of the nationalism that I feel like Ahki was referencing is something that H. Brown once said. He said, everything America's for, I'm against. If they say America's great, I say America ain't shit. So you know what I'm saying? Iran, they agree with that. I agree with that. So on this issue, I'm rocking with what they're talking about. Yeah.
There you go. Solidarity. For sure. Big solidarity. You know what I'm saying? So with that, we're going to say peace. Keep that fire burning. Till next time, episode 110, we out.
Peace.